My name is Alannah Hall, reading the book Introduction for Little People. A medium once told W.B. Yeats, the renowned Irish poet who wrote about the fairies, "Do not seek to know too much about the Irish fairies, and be careful what you wish for." Before the mortals arrived in Ireland, or Erie as known then, the island belonged only to the fairies. When people think of fairies, they usually think of tiny creatures with wings. The reality could not be more different. Many different fairies lived on the island long before the first mortal ships dropped anchor, looking for fresh water. They couldn't believe how lush green the small paradise island was with its deep forests. But they soon discovered the weather could change very quickly, becoming bitterly cold and wet. Within days, the mortals would always move on because of the constant heavy rain. Over time, sailors' stories about strange creatures' sightings on the mysterious island. As the centuries passed, the scenic island became known as uninviting and even cursed with magic. However, this all changed when two ships sailed around the island until they found an opening on the northeast coast that joined a river that took them inland. The mortals were astounded by the silky water flowing from the mountains to become a river. An Rutech, River Liffey. Excited, the tired mortals disembarked from the ships with their animals, glad to have left behind the war and death to set up home in this newfound paradise. There were some wild animals, but no sign of humans. After spending weeks on the island with good weather, the mortals decided to stay. They built a massive fire to celebrate finding the island through pagan worship of the trees, lakes, stones, and animals. The autumn months passed and winter arrived. The weather conditions became harsher, and the mortals feared running out of food. Since their arrival, the fairies had been watching the mortals from a distance with great curiosity. The fairies could see they were suffering until one night, a tremendous storm hit the island, and the ships were wrecked so badly they sunk. This led to starvation, and the fairies decided to show themselves, knowing their lives would change, but they did not comprehend how great the change would be. The mortals were genuinely shocked by the fairies' sudden appearance, not knowing if they were friends or foes. After time, the fairies taught the mortals Gaelic to communicate with them. As the years passed, the mortals' families grew, and their attitudes toward the fairies changed. They became envious the fairies could read and write and had exceptional knowledge. The mortals became less tolerant of the fairies' unconventional ways, having forgotten their kindness and compassion, and constantly poke fun at the fairies. There was only one solution for the fairies: to relocate to a remote part of the island to escape the ignorant mortals. Unfortunately, cruel mortals tried to hunt down the fairies and capture them, believing they could become good luck charms. The fairies resorted to using more magic to protect themselves. When the mortals discovered the fairies were using magic, they tried even harder to kill them, believing they had become evil with their sorcery and looked to burn them alive in their open fires. When Christianity came to Ireland, Saint Michael became the patron saint of all the fairies. He felt a great sadness for the awful treatment of the fairies by the mortals, and puts a stop to punishing the fairies and announced, "Leave them alone and let them live their lives safely." So gradually, less and less was heard of the fairies. Mortals didn't appreciate that the fairies could move faster than the human eye, making them practically invisible. Have you ever seen something flash before your eyes but then dismissed it as a figment of your imagination? There could have been a fairy in your midst. Only the brave or stupid would dare venture into the fairies' unknown domain, but of course, first, you must believe in them to see the fairies. The fairies could take many different forms. changelings, banshees, leprechauns, and sherries, to name a few. Like the mortals, there are good and bad fairies. Most just enjoy causing mischief to scare the mortals when they enter their world. The mortals would be terrified and leave quickly, vowing never to return.